Welcome to this introductory program to the long-term series, Whole of Community Change, featuring Annalise Jennings, Director of Dynamic Exchange, and Marianne Coconut, Elder and Representative of the Napranum Aboriginal Shire Council in Queensland. Annalise Jennings, as the Director of Dynamic Exchange, has over 25 years' experience in senior roles in financial services and other sectors, including property and small business. She's an experienced facilitator and has led business transformation in project management in large organizations and has an extensive background in risk management and organizational culture. This experience has been gained through working in India, Australia, New Zealand, and the United Kingdom. She has spoken on transformation and maximizing human potential in a variety of business and community forums. Jennings is passionate about teams and helping them discover healthy working relationships and celebrating success and empowerment. She balances her time between key corporate engagements, her part-time career as an alternative health practitioner, and has always combined her working life with parenting and study. She strongly believes in human potential and is a passionate advocate of ethical corporate and individual behavior in the business community. Councillor Marianne Coconut is an elder of the community of Napranum. Her responsibilities include education and social services, and she believes that education is essential to community progress. She has led the way completing a Bachelor of Community Management at Maraki University. She was also quoted, "The people are the caretakers of this land, given to us by the Creator Spirit, who is the Creator. We acknowledge Him with adoration and thanksgiving. We are the elders and the gatekeepers. This is an age-old role given to us by our ancestors. Our knowledge and wisdom of our country is still strong and will remain invisible and well guarded in our spirit till we die. Our spirit will pass this knowledge on to the next elder in line." From the Aboriginal community of Napranum, in Queensland, Australia, I'm joined today by Annalise Jennings, Director of Dynamic Exchange, and Marianne Coconut, Elder of the Napranum Aboriginal Shire Council. Welcome to DG Networks, a Universal One broadcasting member, and a great pleasure to introduce the long-term series and its introduction to Whole of Community Change. Very pleased to introduce Annalise Jennings, Director of Dynamic Exchange, and Marianne Coconut, Elder and Representative of Napranum Aboriginal Shire Council. Start with yourself, if I may. Annalise, welcome to the series. A great pleasure.
Thank you, David.
And to Marianne, a great pleasure as well.
Thank you, David.
Start with yourself, if I may, Annalise. What a wonderful series this is going to be. Your work has obviously transformed many people and communities. Could you start off perhaps by providing for our listeners a overview of where we'll take this journey in the future and your immediate work as it has been transforming the community of Napranum where you are currently based?
The program is called Whole of Community Change, and this is a program that has been co-created with the people of Napranum. It finds a balance between the financial stability or the economic development of the community. And by spiritual well-being, what I mean by that is that it creates a will, a desire, a motivation in the community to really get involved. And so as infrastructure starts to be created within the community through the development of a visionary plan, that there's the will, the desire, and also the building of capability for people to be able to step in and start to contribute to very real change. So that's the essence of the program, and it's very much a conversation about community ownership and self-determination. So whole of community change is all about building communities from the inside.
Thank you very much, Annalise. That was perfect. Let me turn to Marianne. Could you give me a brief perspective of Napranam, the community, the area, the beauty in which you reside?
Yes, I was born in Napranam. I grew up in Napranam. I saw the changes with the mining, and I was involved with whole of community change. It was something that gave us a lot of energy to see what's happening. But I like to paint a picture. It's not with hills and big rivers, it's a flat country. We have some saltwater rivers with crocs in it, and got a lot of mangroves near the creeks. We have a beach that we go fishing.
When you say that there was an energy that Annalise brought to this, can you define that energy? I'm sure that it's a different type of energy than many people would be able to interpret. Can you tell me what that energy is?
Well, to me, with the ripple effect, when you throw a pebble in a pond, the circle gets bigger. And that's how the people in Napranam got affected. It just spread through the community. And I believe that's the energy that moved in the community.
Marianne, thank you. Let me turn back to you, Annalise, in this introduction. Striking portrayal, is it not, of Napranam and the country, the landscape around it. How do you feel about that, listening to Marianne talk about that beauty and the energy that has been created here with your work in collaboration?
It's massively moving as I hear Marianne talk about the ripple effect. It moves me very deeply. It's very, very profound. And it's a philosophy, a concept that I brought into our conversations very early. And it was a way of engaging the hearts and minds of the people and bringing my heart and mind closer to the people. And so every word that we speak, every action that we take, every behaviour that we demonstrate creates a ripple effect. And so do we want that ripple effect to be one of positive change, or do we want it to be one of not? And so that's the question that we ask ourselves as we create this amazing visionary plan. And so when I hear Marianne talk about that, and I hear her talk about the landscape of the community, you know, what really struck me when I came into Napranam was its absolute beauty. You know, where it's situated on country, it's a beautiful community, beautiful turquoise, magnificent colour of the water, and the foreshore is absolutely breathtaking. And that red dirt, and it's so rich, and the culture of the people and the energy of the people and the will and the desire to really get up and give something a go. This is a community that refused to say no. This is a community that refused to ever give up, and so deeply moving.
So let me turn back to Marianne. Can you talk to me about that turquoise? Annalise talks about the water, the shore, perhaps talk about the history you always have in your sights, always have in the background. Those two concepts of how Annalise perceives where you live and your area, and then the history of that. Could you talk to us a bit about that?
Yes, well, it's the two seasons, wet season and the dry season. In the wet season, the place looks beautiful, green, blue waters, blue sky, and the bauxite that they mine for in Weipa, it paints a lovely red pinkish color, which brings that color out if you're a new person coming into Weipa. It's so good to know that I've grown up in Weipa, and my mother told me stories about how the first mission was established a bit further up the river where we live now. And they moved from the mission in the 1932. They moved to the present site that we live now in Napranum. Well, it was called WAPA before, and it was a mission that was established. So we grew up in the mission system, went to the mission school, and our people lived near the waterfront, and that's where our new supermarket is. We are so proud of the new supermarket, and it was always with our elders around us telling us about the history of WAPA, Napranum.
What we're doing is imagining that we're all there together in this beautiful land. When you began the program, Annalise, did you look at all this history? Did you feel the people, feel the community, feel the history before you could undertake community change programs that you were going to put into place?
No, I didn't actually. I came in with a very open mind and with a blank canvas. And I love that because I came in with an intention to engage the hearts and minds of an amazing community, and so I didn't feel that I needed to understand or do a lot of research on the history of the people. I felt that I would learn that at the right time and at the right place and as I needed to. And so mine was a process of coming in with that blank canvas and asking some great questions. And I believe that our wisdom lies in the questions that we ask, and having the respect and the presence of mind that the answers are in the wisdom of the people that we're talking with. And so there wasn't a need for me to do a huge amount of research, and that to me was really, really exciting. I'm a pioneer and I love experiencing things that, for the first time, or having an experience of something that hasn't been tried before. And so to come in with a clean and open mind was quite perfect for me.
But Annalise, Marianne, the way she described the progress by this ripple effect, there's something very deep about that. It's a ripple effect to me that comes from the sea, comes from the land, comes from our Creator. And it's a wonderful way to define progress in terms of a project like this. How do you see that word as used by Marianne? It's a lovely way to describe your efforts and your progress and success in the community.
The progress of the ripple effect, if we use that as the concept, it starts with a question, and it starts with an openness and a respect for the people and developing that trust and rapport. And so that's the basis of the ripple effect. And so the underpinning philosophies are around community ownership, around having that sense of belonging, around a spirit of connectedness where my success is your success, my failure is your failure. There is no them and us, and we are all interconnected. We are all part of this creator spirit. And the third element is that we come together in a conversation where we care for the well-being of the whole. And so we leave those individual agendas at the back door and we come together in a conversation about what are we here to create together. And that ripple effect continues to expand, because as we start to have that conversation, we start to envision what the future might look like. And what the future may look like is a process of engaging with many, many people, listening to their hearts and minds, empowering the people to feel that, they have a voice and that they're being heard and that they're valuable, they're viable, and it's a process of integrity. And then through there we start to create that community spirit, starts to grow into something that's very tangible, into a community blueprint by which future policy, funding and services is measured against. And so that starts to become very tangible, and we start to see the development of infrastructure. Napranum has seen a jump of 40% community-owned infrastructure. We've seen a jump in 60% employment that's a really significant ripple effect. We've seen a shift in entropy from 32% to just 9%, and entropy refers to the level of misalignment in a community, and 32% is a very significant level of misalignment. And we've seen that reduce to 9 and 13% within 2 years. And, that's not just a ripple effect. That's a really great big wave of change. That's really, really significant. And it all starts with a conversation and asking ourselves those age-old questions. Who am I? What am I here for? What are we here to create together? What is it that is deeply meaningful for me?
With that, Marianne, we're talking about the ripple effect, and I guess in a way, when she talks to entropy, she's talking to a certain extent of dysfunction. Can you remember when these discussions, dialogues began? Can you remember the beginning with Annalise, when you would sit down and look at this and figure a way out forward in this mission? What are the memories with that?
The memories I have is of a young lady coming into our community, coming down to our level and listening to us, not giving us advice or telling us what to do, but having these workshops together and putting our ideas together for the 10-year plan for Napranum, to make sure that it's not just dreams, that dreams can come into reality. And that's what we are seeing now in our community, with all the progress that is happening in our community. All started with the first conversation with Annalise. We just built that friendship. She built that bridge for our friendship to develop and trust each other, and trust that things will work out well, not just for now, but for the future of Napranum.
There are many important words there, are there not, Annalise, that Marianne uses? Wonderful bridge, listening, dreams. And this is in many ways very archetypal from my perspective, and I'm sure from yours. Is that dialogue that you create together a reciprocal giving and re-giving dialogue in a form of a circle? Is that how it works when you begin this collaboration together, Annalise?
It's interesting that you should ask that question in the way that you do, because when I think about Dynamic Exchange, which is the name of my company, the meaning of the words dynamic exchange refers to a reciprocal energy of giving and receiving, and a knowing that that energy exists within us. It exists between us and the people we engage with. It exists between us and the environment, between us and society, and out to humanity. And that's a ripple effect. And when I chose that name many years ago, I had no idea of what I was about to step into. And so it really is a process of trust and good faith, and a knowing that the answer lies in the wisdom of the collective. And I absolutely believe that.
This is very important, because you're talking about energy, the energy between us. And out of interest, you have this enormous nature around you. Well, we are ourselves nature, I realize that. But do you feel that? Do you feel that those in the community feel that as being part of that sublime energy that is drifting between you now? It must be an amazing process. The more you travel with this, the further it goes. Those connections that you have between each other must be very profound, I'm sure.
David, I'm learning every day, and the sense of energy and connection is something that I've had a sense of, something that I have felt for many, many years, and from when I was very, very young. It wasn't until only the last 5 years, when I've started to work with Indigenous communities, and in particular with Marianne and the community of Napranum. They have taught me so much. they've taught me what it actually means to feel that connection and that energy. When you step into a circle of integrity and faith, there is no separation. And so when I talk about the spirit of connectedness, look, we've experienced it through this process. There's no them and us. We are one group, one mind, one entity working towards a vision and a goal, and we all believed in one another. There was no hierarchy, there was no ego, there was a pure intent to serve the collective. And Napranum was already in that listening. I stepped in and I started to learn from them. And so we came together in that spirit and in that conversation, and Napranum, the people of Napranum have had the foresight, the energy to just take this and run with it. There is no stopping this community.
Marianne, let me ask you, with that really quite emotional delivery there from Annalise, so appreciated. Let me ask you, Marianne, the idea of the circle, of the way that this is described by Annalise. You obviously feel that circle, is that part of the way that historically your community would come together in dialogue? Is it the circle and that reciprocal love and connection in that circle that creates the change, creates the drive to move forward, to advance every day?
Yes. With us, the Aboriginal people of the land, the custodians of the land, we believe in that circle. And it's always the fire in the middle. And with the fire, it always gives warmth. And with friendship, there is always this warmth that you spread it around. We don't look at people's colors. We work together as one people.
Can you just give me impressions now from your perspective as being an elder in the community of the journey, what you yourself have witnessed by the changes that have taken place as this has been put into place by Annalise and these programs? What have you witnessed in that, beyond just the everyday changes logistically, but the changes in your people's energy, their feelings, their outlooks? It must be an amazing experience to have Annalise there undertaking this and working with you. What is it that you've witnessed very deeply?
Well, I would like to say first that when you work with the people, it's working with the people, not for the people. It's about working together. And I see that since Annalise have come in, that we have worked together, the elders, the youth, the young adults, and some of them couldn't even speak up for themselves. They were shy. And the second meeting, they got out and spoke about their life, that something have changed within them, and they were able to go and look for jobs around Napranum or in the mining company, which is Rio Tinto.
Indeed, it's all about the youngsters, is it not? And this is where this whole of community change has obviously affected immeasurable changes in itself. Where you are, the nature that you have, the landscape, the beauty, the sea, the water, the land, there must be an amazing opportunity that many would not have, of hovering between the stillness of that nature and the motion of the community and the motion of change. Is that something that you feel in this process that you can have the stillness of your surroundings, find the balance between that motion that you're putting into place with these projects and yet retain the stillness of the beauty that surrounds you?
Yes, it's about spirituality, I would say, about the connection with the universe and the great creator spirit. That's where you get your calmness. With everything around you, there's a time to stop and reflect and breathe the fresh air and listen to the birds. Listen to the kookaburras in the morning. Listen to the night owl in the night. Sit around the fire and feel the warmth and spread the stories to our young children, which is always our culture, to tell stories verbally. Even till today, I remember my grandparents, my parents telling me stories around the fire. Nothing written, just verbal history, and we still carry that history on. We also have stories connected to land about birds, fish in the sea. I have one about a bird which is called the emu, the Australian bird, but it doesn't fly anymore because there's the story about there was another bird that was jealous and told the emu to put its wing in the hot ashes, and that's why the emu can't fly anymore.
Do you think there's a message behind that somewhere?
I think so, that sometimes we can't be floating in the air all the time. We have to get down and on our feet and stand firmly on our feet.
Thank you so much, Marianne. Well, before I proceed, Annalise, your general thoughts to that, what you're feeling?
Oh, look, I'm just a little overwhelmed at the moment listening to Marianne and listening to her stories, and I think that's just a beautiful metaphor for life, that there are times when you've got to, maybe get up on the balcony and think about, lots of ideas and different ways of doing things and see life from a different lens, and then you've just got to come down to Mother Earth and feel the vibration of Mother Earth and feel grounded and know how to put it all into some sort of practical context. And so it's a great metaphor for living and for life.
Marianne, when you talk about dreams, you had talked about the beauty of bridging and listening, so important today, and dreams, and yet the metaphor, I guess, in many ways for me would be being able to climb the mountain and have less matter and more space, and then return back into a society or a community and give back all of the energy and the spiritual messages that you have been awarded by that experience. Is that how you feel that at times it is important, particularly during these programs, that anybody in this, any of us listening or involved in Napranam, can go to the top of the mountain, find that space, but always come back into society to contribute this immense amount of power and energy that you gain from that?
Yes, I would say that sometimes the people, whether we are senior elders or young adults, we go out of the community and we study in university or TAFE, but we return to the community because we bring our knowledge back to the community to help our people in the community. Even if we want to go up to the mountain, we'll come back to the community. But like I always say, the sky is the limit if we want to reach our goal and shine like a star.
Thank you, Marianne. Annalise, this is a very important point here in the introduction that I had provided in our notes, and Marianne has described that so sublimely. But it is important because in the notes I talk about retention, and I'm not even sure that that is a well-crafted word for this. You may be able to expand on that, but young people are bound to leave. They will go to other areas for education or to work, or as Marianne talked about in the mining community. Always so important, is it not, that they retain that connection and where possible return to the community to bring back all of that knowledge? Is that something that's foremost in your mind? Could you expand on that, Annalise?
First and foremost, it's about choice. And so, whole of community change, this whole philosophy is about creating a sense of ownership and responsibility, and having a choice in how you want to manage your life. And so, for some, it's about growing the community from within inside and stepping into the growth that's happening inside the community and playing a very important role in taking the community forward. For others, it is about finding that journey outside of the community and at times coming back and delivering that knowledge, that wisdom, the skills and the experience into the community and helping it to grow at that appropriate time. And others maybe move on and don't come back to the community, but that's okay too. See, all of this is about choice. It's about empowering people to say, who am I? What am I here for? What is my journey? And allowing that to manifest itself in whatever way it needs to. But my humble, very humble experience of Napranum is that there's a very, very strong will and desire to grow the community on the inside. And many of the people that I've spoken to, they want to stay in their community. They want to see the numbers multiply. You know, they want to see a population explosion in Napranum. And so when we see a 40% growth in infrastructure, I can only imagine what the growth is going to be over the next 5 years. You know, this is a community that is implemented in just the last 2 years since this started. They've implemented over 90% of the initiatives on their visionary 10-year plan, and we're only 2 years in. And so that is testament to the fact that people actually want to stay and grow the community from the inside. But to come back to your question, it's all about choice, giving and empowering people to take their journeys, their lives in whatever direction they feel they need to.
Well, let me just ask you there, Annalise, you're talking about growing on the inside, but obviously ensuring that as you grow on the inside, particularly for an Indigenous community, that in many ways it grows on the outside as well, so that you can spread the good news to outlying communities. Is that also, and I'm sure it is, part of this plan where there can be greater connections forged in the future here between communities near and far away?
Well, I love to adopt the principle of the 30% tipping point. And so in really practical terms, in engaging, 30% of a community, change becomes self-sustaining. And I mean engaging them in this new conversation about, ownership, self-determination, empowerment. And so if you then take that 30% tipping point and look at the whole region and look at, okay, well, what could that look like then in terms of a region, 30% of Indigenous communities across the region? Well, that's really, really phenomenal. That really is voice in volumes. So in really practical terms, this is all about the making and building of community from the inside, and then watch that ripple effect then expand out to, how it touches and other communities. I know that mayors and CEOs across communities are coming together on the topic of regional development. And that's a conversation that really only started about maybe 14 months ago. So that ripple effect in terms of how it's connecting communities together is becoming stronger.
Marianne, this is an interesting part of our dialogue today, isn't it? This new conversation that Annalise talks about. It's all about perception. We all have our worldviews. We have either traveled or not, and we all look through different lenses, and yet we are all one at the end of the day. When Annalise talks about this new conversation, how do you view that? Because in a place such as Napranum, with your history, culture, that massive sense of spirituality that you have there, and the nature that you have, how do you see that, and how do you perceive it? How do you look at that and say, yes, new conversation? We may have our culture, our history, our nature, but how can we expand our conversation that is very deeply held in a very deep spiritual space? How do you see that new conversation?
I see it as a rose. The flower, a stem with a rose has thorns. There's the beautiful flower at the end of the branch. It has always been our theme in Napranum that when we look at a rose, there's always hope. You go past the thorns, and at the end of the thorns, there is this beautiful rose. And when I look at it, it also paints a picture that there are times when you're in the box, but you are free to move out of the box and broaden your knowledge and share it with the people, the children around you.
Thank you, Annalise. Well, that is amazing, is it not? Because that really is defining, I'm sure, in your mind, the process that you take in the programs. Are those thorns, there is the rose, and you take them in your stride. And in your world, of course, Annalise, this is a strategized and well thought out, compassionate, empathetic role that you play. How do you see that?
Oh, look, I love listening to Marianne and her stories, and I love her metaphors, and it creates such a visual impact when you think about the rose and you think about the thorns. And we certainly have here a story that's worth sharing. The transformation, to be a part of that evolution and to see Napranum grow in such a short space of time, and to be part of this from concept to actuality is just such a privilege. Has it been easy all the way? There's been bumps along the way, there's been a few thorns. But you accept all of that and have absolute faith that at the end of it there is a rose, and you just have to take the next step and the next step. And David, you asked earlier about, you mentioned the word strategizing and you mentioned the word plan, and I don't know that I can really put my head around what the plan even is. I think, the best we can do is have an intention. The best that we can do is have a vision for the future and take one step in front of the other. Every day get up and take another step, and then another step, and then have the faith that that's going to evolve. And using Marianne's metaphor, have the faith that you get to see that rose at the end of the stem and through all the thorns. And that's what's happened with Napranum, and I just congratulate every single person who's played a part in it, because some of the earlier conversations were not easy conversations. When the engagement first started, there were some thorns. There was some anger in the focus groups. There was a little bit of frustration. There was, a sense of, that sigh in the community, why, what's the point? We've been let down so many times. Should we really believe this? All of those conversations represented thorns, but there was an overwhelming belief and faith that we could get through that and see those conversations grow into that sense of self-belief and moving forward.
Let me ask you to provide one example of part of the project that is highly memorable for yourself and created enormous transformation in front of your eyes along this journey. What would that be? Marianne talked about the supermarket, which obviously we will talk about in a future episode. One event that you remember that really did open your eyes to the magnificence of what you were creating here?
I can't say that I created it. This was a co-creation of many minds coming together. But one memory that really stays with me is when we worked through all of the engagement, and this was engaging and talking with about 200 people right across the community, some one-on-ones, some in small groups. And I remember speaking with some young mums at the preschool. And remember, this is a community that had no supermarket, no shop, no library, no art centre, no school, a council with a big blue tarp over it to cover its roof, an oval that needed resurfacing, no night lights, broken down basketball rings, no public transport. How do you exist in a situation like that? We talk about thorns. Well, there's some thorns. And I remember a conversation with some young mums in a really early focus group where I asked them about their hopes, their dreams and the vision for their community. And one young mum saying to me, Annalise, nothing's ever going to change around here. And that young woman knows who she is. I won't name her. And if she's listening to this broadcast, she'll remember this conversation, because that young woman then came along to the Young Adults Leadership and Capability Program. And she just took all the learning from that and she just ran with it. And she got herself a job of her choice really, really quickly. But it, didn't stop there. She came along to another program that we ran called Women of Worth, where we went to a beautiful place called Mungali Falls and we went abseiling. We went jumping off the sides of mountains to create and to really create that vision. We did so much wonderful work together, and she came along to that as well, and she's come along to every focus group. And that young woman has changed her life. She's turned her life around and she knows who she is. And I can give you so many stories, and just one other, when after all of the engagement sessions we then brought together 35 key representatives from around the community, government representatives and strategic partners to start to pull together our visionary plan. And at the end of that 3-day workshop, Marianne closed that workshop and she asked everybody to stand up in a circle, and we all held hands and we played the song The Rose. And that was a very deeply meaningful process for everybody in that circle. So to watch government representatives, community, strategic partners come together and holding hands, women with women, men with men, and it was a real moment. That was special. I'll never forget that.
It's a striking picture that is being painted in this tapestry, and clearly there is an enormous impression made upon women in the community, young women, mothers, and this has to be a very important moment in our human evolution today, to regain that sense of femininity, the strength in that for all to share, for all to dance with. How do you feel about that, the way that the women in the community can be empowered, can feel and sense what Annalise is talking about here in what they share together?
One of our theme in the 10-year community plan was 1,000 voices singing the one tune, because I believe that it's happening, that we all on the same page, and it's seeing into the future, going through this tunnel where there's a light at the end of the tunnel.
Let's imagine for a minute that around this table we have 1,000 people, 1,000 beings, and all wish to feel as I do what it feels to have your toes in the sand on the beaches that surround your beautiful community. What is it that we would see as we walk along those sands? What would we see as we walked through Napranum and visited the supermarkets, engaged in dialogue with people of all ages in Napranum? What would we all around this table see and feel today?
The aroma, the color. And I'd like to add more. That's why we gave Annalise an Aboriginal name, because of the bridge that we built. That Aboriginal name is Keely. We thought, what name we going to give her? We thought of the lorikeet. And everybody knows that a lorikeet or a parrot, how beautiful it is. So when walking in the beach, we see these colors and we feel that way. But like I say, there's time of harmony, but there are times we up on the mountain, then we down in the valley. But we believe that there's no place for us down there in the valley. We have to climb up that mountain to reach the top.
Thank you, Marianne. I'm going to ask the same of yourself, Annalise. You have 1,000 souls around this table. What about your perception, your eyes? What do you see walking down that beach? It's very important for all of us to feel Napranum as we move forward in these programs. What do you see through your eyes?
I see an evolution of mankind. I see a bringing together of 1,000 souls and a connection to the Creator. I don't believe there are words in the English language that can really describe what I can see at the moment. It's an immense power of a voice that goes to the very heart of what we're trying to create. This community has actually demonstrated this sense of belonging, and I'm talking about a fourth dimensional belonging, a connection to Mother Earth, a sense that we don't own land, but land actually owns us. They have demonstrated this place of connectedness where we can hold hands in a circle and actually feel the presence of one entity. They have demonstrated through the bringing together of their visionary plan that they have come together in a collective voice and they've put together a plan that is good for the whole. There are no individual agendas in that plan. And what these 1,000 souls have also done, which has absolutely taken my breath away, is that we have shifted the narrative from paternalism, control, punishment, penalty, exploitation, blame, confusion, to community ownership, community engagement, working for the whole. So that's a powerful 1,000 voices that have come together to create that in a miraculously very short space of time, 2 years in the context of the last 200 years, Marianne. I can only say wow.
It's interesting, Annalise, that you talk about this in terms of a narrative, because I have a wonderful, wonderful young man in the north of England who is writing a book about his experiences, and he resides in a very poor part of England, traditionally a working class narrative, very deprived. And there's such a huge connection there between his role as a game changer and all of our roles today. But that narrative is very, very dynamic, the way that you lay that out. As you laid that out and you see that transform, how do you ensure that the narrative doesn't go off the rails, as it were, or doesn't go off the center of the road, but still returns that magic that Napranum and its culture has, while at the same time bringing it to an entire world community, proving how it is a worthy and meaningful model for human transformation? How do you achieve that?
Two things come to mind. Change your energy, change your story, change your life. And that's all about creating a new narrative. The other thing that comes to mind is what Mary Ann spoke about earlier, where she speaks about the blending of stillness with getting into the movement of everyday life. And so to be able to sustain that change at an individual level, we need to be able to continue to step into the stillness of who we truly are. We need to be able to find that time to listen to the birds, to listen to the water, to reconnect with Mother Nature, to remember who we truly are and what we're here for. At another practical level, it's all about a strategy that's sustainable for future generations, and that's certainly a conversation that came out of the community, that what they most wanted was a sustainable, visionary plan for their future generations, and that's what I believe they absolutely have. And so at a really practical level, when we look at implementation strategies, there's always a need to continue to renew, to come back to that blank canvas, to recreate, to look at, okay, what's our progress? What else do we need to do? Three things have played a key role in Napranum's rise, and the first has been leadership from the council, from the mayor, the CEO and the councillors. I absolutely believe that they've driven this. The second has been a progressive government that has responded to the needs of community, and that's the shift in narrative that I'm talking about when I say the move from paternalism and control to community-owned infrastructure. The third element is the whole of community change, where every sector of the community has got involved in this new narrative, not just in a spiritual context, but in a really practical way. They are demonstrating this shift and they are participating in the visionary plan on a day-to-day basis.
Thank you, Annalise. You see, this is where I feel that the past hierarchical structures are now falling. Just tell me a bit more as we come towards the end of this introductory program about leadership, Annalise, because much of that is regarding the culture that is created by the leaders, that is an amount of personal mastery that they need to go through, travel through themselves to find their own place of being so that they can create and be part of that culture in the community. How do you see that working? It must be an astounding experience to watch the leaders of Napranum travel through this process, finding themselves, finding that pride, and realizing that this is a new world. It must be extremely exciting.
Every member of the council has participated in this program. In fact, I would say that most of them have participated in every part of the program. So I believe that the essence of great leadership and the essence of transformation is for us to always put ourselves in the role of the learner and to continue to relearn, to continue to remember. And again, I believe that that's been demonstrated at every level, and that tone that the council, the CEO and the mayor have put in place has been fundamental to the success of this program.
Marianne, let me just come back to you on that. What an amazing word that Annalise has adopted there, remembering. I have spent the last 5 years myself with many nations in Arizona, California, New Mexico, the Hopis and the Anastasies, and it is a time I've found that is based upon remembering who we are, that perhaps we lost over the years, over the eons of time. Do you feel that that is something that is occurring here in the bigger scheme of things as the community finds itself, becomes a wonderful model for the entire world to look at, that what you and all of us are doing is beginning to remember who we truly are, what we are truly able to achieve with our infinite potential?
I truly believe that I'm this Aboriginal black woman. There is a mother, a grandmother, and a great-grandmother. And family is important with everything around us. Community issues with domestic violence, child abuse, child protection is part of our life. Education. And I believe I'm this woman that is always there, making sure that I don't burn both ends of the candle, but I'm there for my people. I'm there with the mining company to talk about land. And just recently, we were honored by the mining company, the elders of Napranum, as honorable elders that contribute our lives to our community in Napranum and to the mining company that is here working on our lands, that employs our people, that gives bursaries through the company to give education, not just for our young people or after-school leavers, but also for senior people that can go and study. And for one, I went to the university and I have a bachelor's degree with community management, which I'm proud of as a black woman of this country.
Annalise, may I turn to you? We're moving towards the end of this introductory program today. Thoughts, perhaps, and your ideas and your vision as to where this series is going to take us all, what it's going to open our eyes to, feel and experience as we learn of the amazing achievements at Napranum.
My vision for all of this is to reach out to communities all over the world, to be able to deliver a message that says, don't give up. Don't ever give up on your hopes and dreams. That in this remote area of far north Queensland, this community, this highly evolved group of people that I feel very humbled to be accepted by, that together we've found a way to create sustainable change. And so that is my vision, to reach out and say, don't give up. There's a way that your vision, that your truth, that your dreams can move from concept to actuality, that this can actually be real, that it can be true.
And just a general run down, perhaps, the type of topics that will cover what you feel our listeners can look forward to in the future?
I would love to bring into this dialogue some of the young adults that have changed their lives, the contributions that they're making inside the community, how they've shifted within themselves. I would love to hear from a diverse sector of the community on their experiences and what their contribution is to this visionary plan.
And for yourself, Marianne, what do you feel will take place here as we move forward with these wonderful dialogues? What are your hopes and dreams as we share with the world everything that is taking place in your wonderful community?
My hopes and dreams that we share this knowledge together as one people of the world and keep spreading the message, touching lives of others.
Annalise, your final thoughts for the program today?
I feel humbled. I feel overwhelmed. I love listening to Marianne. Every time I listen to Marianne, I learn so much and I feel really, really privileged. I'd also like to say that I didn't teach anybody anything, that I came in with an openness and asked some really great questions. And together we co-created this and made it work.
I'm going to complete the program today, if I may, with yourself, Marianne. When I take programs, I will sometimes imagine holding hands with everybody involved and walking through my barley fields of Wiltshire to Stonehenge and back, as I did when I was a child, and still do today, and ask you to complete the program by perhaps holding our hands and walking us on a favourite walk that you have, that you will take at either end of the day when you wish to find that stillness.
Yes, my journey would be to go and walk through this lovely bushland with birds singing, with the stream running, hearing the water, feeling the calmness around. And what I feel now is that I like to say a short prayer. Creator Spirit, take us through this journey, that we might hold our hands together, looking at each other as your creation in this world that you have given to us. Help us to understand and share our knowledge together. In your mighty name, amen.
Amen.
Thank you.
Annalise Jennings, Marianne Coconut, it has been a huge privilege to run through these fields today with you and this introductory program. I shall start off with yourself, Annalise Jennings. Thank you so very much for joining us today.
Thank you, David.
Marianne Coconut, also to yourself, thank you so much.
Thank you too, David. It was a privilege that we journeyed together and painted that picture and built the bridge.
And to our listeners today, I do hope that you have enjoyed this introductory program in the long-term series, Whole of Community Change, as much as we. You can gain information on this and any other program in the series at the official website, davidgibbons.org, or for international facilitated panels, crossingoverthebridge.com. Meanwhile, wherever you are in this world, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening.